these new links. Okay, now if we're good now, we can get started. And I'll probably mostly just stay quiet to avoid any issues, so you can just talk about the ceasefire and the background on what happened with the ceasefire. Or not.
So yeah, should we get started on the ceasefire then? Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, there's probably.
All right. So basically, a bit of background. Weeks previous to the ceasefire announcement and Abdullah Öcalan being allowed to make a public statement for the first time in years from prison, the head of the far right nationalist party, which is essentially like the Grey Wolves party in the Turkish parliament, who is in a coalition with Erdogan's party, the MKP, basically started suggesting to Erdogan that he initiate some sort of peace process with the PKK. In my opinion, because they've kind of realized that their ground war against the PKK inside the borders of the KRG, the Kurdish Regional Government of Iraq, isn't going anywhere, and they're actively losing it. Like, they are losing positions, they're sustaining a ridiculous amount of casualties, and the PKK is only getting better at fighting, to the point now where the Turks can't even operate TB2s over the KRG anymore because so many got shot down, and the PKK is now implementing FPV drones in the mountains, despite Turkey having quite sophisticated electronic warfare systems. So on the back of that, there have been like behind the scenes negotiations to get something started for, I'd say, over a month now from reporting. Probably realistically, it's been going on for like 3-ish months. And what this led to was the Dem party, which is like the pro-Kurdish left-wing party that's like kind of aligned with the PKK and like the broader Democratic Confederalist movement, was allowed to visit Öcalan in prison and basically receive a statement from him. Now, a lot of people online are like, oh, like, we can't trust this statement. Like, the Turks are only letting release something if it was like censored by them, blah 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 blah. But realistically, Öcalan wouldn't let a statement that he didn't agree with get released by him anyway. Do you know what I mean? He's been in there for 3 decades at this point. Like, he's kind of used to living in a fucking Alcatraz made specifically for him. It's not like the Turks could like really threaten that much against him to force a statement out of him.
That was my initial thought, was like, is this coerced?
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt he'd let himself get coerced into making some sort of big statement. Okay. But basically in the statement that got released, like 3 days ago now, Öcalan basically said that the peace process needs to start, and the PKK should hold a council and disarm, because obviously there's no like head of the PKK that can just make a decision on the whole organization. It's like they've got a council that runs it.
Yes.
So after that, the PKK said that they'd implement a ceasefire so that they wouldn't go on the offensive against the Turks in the KRG and everywhere else they operate. The Turks haven't really reciprocated that and have still been attacking them, but we'll see how long that we'll see if that if their attacks slow down and they quietly start stopping their operations in the KRG. In my opinion, that's when we'll know that some sort of peace process is actually happening. Now, PKK leadership, like on the ground leadership, not Öcalan, have been saying for weeks leading up to this that a real peace negotiations, like a peace process, will only start if, for one, Öcalan is let out of prison to manage the peace process. Like they've been saying that they've said that quite a few times now. That if they're willing to go through the peace process if Öcalan's let out of prison, so he can be personally involved in it. Which is, I highly doubt they'd ever do that, because like Erdogan would just be committing political suicide from his national base if they let Öcalan out of prison. But they've also said, like, we're not just gonna disarm and fucking dissolve unless there are real steps put forward by Turkey. Even if Öcalan made a statement, and obviously Öcalan knows that it's his movement at the end of the fucking day that he founded. Like, he's not dumb. He knows his own movement, and he knows that they're not just gonna dissolve themselves on his word. But I think like the discourse around it is where it's been most interesting. But anyway, that's my like initial statement.
Anyway, before we get into the discourse, Jack, yesterday you had a few questions for me, and we kind of did a rapid fire thing. So I figured you could go through those questions and see what a different perspective is, so I don't like repeat everything I said. But you had some pretty good questions. Also, if anyone has cams, turn them on because it helps engagement. So silly. So small. You may have to refresh to get the cam on too. It'll come. We believe in you. They clearly want to access the cams. It's because of Restream. So Restream also is trying to so two programs are accessing the cam, which is why Discord's being overridden. So you need to let them start on the Discord and then load the Restream. Because the webcam will only go to the first program that accesses it. It's not like microphones. Which I guess is a safety feature that they put into webcams where they can't be accessed by multiple programs at the same time.
Yeah, you two should probably just put your cams on fucking Restream.
Well, I'm only full screen sharing to Restream, so the cams have to go through Discord. Like my cam is
of course,
plugged into my computer on this side, and I have my mic into a different thing. We got a crisis. For a second there, we saw crisis menu. He appeared for a second, and then he disappeared.
Oh yeah, we are definitely serious around here. Hence the cat ears.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Jack, if you've got some questions, I'll answer anything. Wait, hold on, I can't hear you. You're talking through Restream.
Yeah, you can't hear you on the Discord now.
That's why.
Okay, there you go.
I
Go
manually
ahead.
muted on my fucking my soundboard. I will ask questions when after everybody makes initial statements, just because I was at a wedding today, or yesterday, so
I mean, we already did the
was very out
initial
of the
statement.
news feed. I only saw cursory stuff, so I don't know much.
I'm just saying, you
I
had
basically
questions
asked a few
yesterday
people.
that
I'm
you
like,
asked
hey,
that were good
what the fuck is
questions.
happening? What do you think? And that's about the extent of it.
Yeah, so just
Yeah,
ask
but
what
I
you
feel
were
like,
asking me.
well, I basically covered everything in like my initial statement thing. But I feel like beginner questions would be good for like people that
Yeah.
don't really know much anyway.
Yeah,
All the
like
stuff you
my
asked me yesterday.
initial, so like as I said, my initial thing was kind of sus. Second one was, will the PKK actually do it? And we were talking about that it's potentially the Iraqi side of it, yes. Potentially not so much like individual cells that like are just doing things. So
Um,
I'm not really sure. I'm also not that familiar with the PKK and their operations, so I'm not like
Yeah, they
well,
essentially only
basically,
too.
exist in
I can
Iraq.
answer that. So basically, right? So imagine you've got like imagine the PKK more as like an umbrella organization, right? Because it doesn't just operate in the Kurdish region of Iraq; it operates in Turkey
Yeah.
and Syria and Iran, right? So you've got like what everyone calls like just the PKK in Iraq and Turkey, and then you've got PJAK, which is the like basically Iranian branch. But then you've
Okay.
also got subgroups like YBS, which is like the Yazidi branch,
Yes.
like the Yazidis that got genocided by ISIS in Sinjar, which is also in Iraq. So you've got like a Yazidi specific version, and then
They're also in the PMF.
you've got like the PYD in Rojava, which is like the political party that like started the.
Yeah, I got it.
Did you say, James? You cut out.
Nothing, I have to do it on this side. I just need my mouse.
But anyway, but yeah, I wouldn't like you shouldn't think of like all the branches as like the same organization. You should kind of view them as like just different organizations within one big umbrella group called the PKK, basically.
Okay.
And with their operations, inside Turkey, it's mostly like recruitment, assassinations of like Turkish fascist groups and
Okay.
like prominent people linked to like the Turkish nationalist like far right movement.
Like the Grey
And
Wolves.
then like yeah, those kind of
Yeah.
guys, or even like guys associated with like the MKP and the AKP, the two leading, sorry, the MHP and the AKP, the two leading government parties.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also blow up, like do industrial sabotage on businesses owned by Erdogan and his like nationalist allies.
Okay, because we
Whereas
did
like,
see the attack on the drone plant, I believe it
Yeah.
was,
So, Jack,
a few months ago.
Jack, I'm gonna
We
send
did
you.
see that. We covered that.
Jack, can you hear me?
But that
although
might be.
that though,
Hello,
that
hello, Jack.
probably wasn't the PKK. That was probably one of the Turkish Marxist or Maoist groups, because there are a bunch of those groups that operate just inside Turkey that do a bunch of attacks as well.
Okay.
Because the PKK never claimed that, and the PKK always claim their attacks. Like they're not on these groups that like don't claim shit.
Okay. Interesting, because I swear that
Um,
they did.
they never claimed that
claim
one.
it. Okay, that's my bad then.
Because I
Those the
always
Freedom
stay
Falcons.
up to date on the Telegram stuff. They didn't claim that specific one, but yeah, and another thing though that the PKK are really active in doing inside Turkey is basically they have the youth branch. So it's right now
Yeah.
it's YPS. It used to be YDBH, but basically the youth branch, what they mostly do is like um kind of like like political hooligans in Europe, how they'll like basically go out and in the streets and like fight with the police and like
Yes.
opposing groups and shit. They basically do that kind of stuff. Like they'll go out and like terrorize the police and the local army that's deployed to Kurdish neighborhoods. They'll like fight with like the Turkish mafia and shit like that, like stuff like that. And
Okay.
then obviously when they're older, they'll go to the mountains and fight. And this is like the main thing. Like when you think of the PKK or hear about it, this is like the main thing you hear
Yeah.
about, which is the active ground war in the Kurdish regional government
In
of
the
Iraq,
mountains, yeah.
where in the mountains, where basically the Turkish military has a presence in those mountains, even though it's sovereign fucking Iraqi and Kurdish regional government territory.
And
And they're
Iraq is fine
basically
with this?
Iraq doesn't really have the power to do anything.
Okay.
To be honest, bro, they don't really have the power to stop them. Like they could tell them to fuck off, whatever, but like, what the fuck are they? Well, like the Turks are just not gonna listen.
Yeah.
And basically, there is really serious fighting there, and has been for years because, like 5-ish years ago now, the Turks started launching these operations like every single year in the KRG to like try and occupy more and more land, like more and more mountains, and like kick the PKK out of their like all their cave networks and stuff. But it's kind of just been a disaster for them. Like they've lost fucking so many guys, like hundreds of killed every year on their side. Like they get like they set up like outposts on mountaintops and they just get overrun constantly. Like they fucking
The
the
Turks
TB2
do?
drone. Yeah, the Turks just get like they send like fucking like their army guys out into the mountains where they're not used to the environment. They don't live there
Yes.
and they're not like that experienced. They put them on like some mountaintop in like a little fittily made forward operating base, and inevitably it just gets overrun by PKK fighters and they all get killed.
Okay.
Um,
And they get it, then free base.
yeah, basically. Well, free equipment mostly. They basically just run in
Yeah.
there, ransack all their equipment, and get off. Basically, just a free loot
Okay.
drop.
Yes.
And now they can't even, their Bayraktar drones, the TB2s. They
Yep.
can't even fucking operate those over the KRG anymore because they keep getting shot out of the sky by the PKK.
I thought
So
they
it's
didn't
kind
have
of
anti-air. I thought that the no anti-air was a big issue.
well, they remedied
So,
that like a year and
I
a bit
think-
ago.
I think
Okay.
to interrupt, I'm going to just flip to this and then turn it off again just to let you know I wanted to interrupt. So the other thing you
So
were
that-
asking about,
That's a really good way to do it, honestly. Just interrupt on the Discord.
yeah. So the other thing you were asking about is like, and I was saying is like, what is the purpose? Like, what is the point of the PKK to even exist today? Like, autonomy has been achieved for Kurds in Syria and Iraq. And as far as like Turkey goes, sure, there's oppression and maybe the mayors weren't elected and things like that, but Kurds are full citizens, right? They don't necessarily need an autonomous state in Turkey. It's kind of like integrated, and they do have local governments. And I compared it to Kosovo with the mayors, how the Serbians withstood elections, and
Yes.
now they're boycotting those mayors, right? So it's not something to like it's not to minimize the oppression of Kurdish people, and I said it's like the West Bank is like far worse. It's not even like I wouldn't even consider Turkey an apartheid state against Kurds. I would consider them discriminated against, systemic racism, things like that, stuff that all nations have for minority groups, you know what I'm saying? So that's the thing is like, why does the PKK still exist? What is even the point of the PKK existing now? What do they accomplish? Like, what does attacks on Turkey's accomplish? What does their operations even accomplish at this point? And then also, Jack, I'm going to send you links
I would say,
to screen share.
I would say one of the main reasons they still exist is literally because of the resentment from the oppression in Turkey, and also because even if like say they go for a peace process with Turkey and that's all like sorted out inside Turkey's borders, there's still Iran that they operate heavily in, and they would probably still exist just to act as like essentially like a like an armed group that Kurds can rely on whenever this state is fucking them over, basically. Like, I think some version of them is always going to exist. Like, even if they get like legalized and politicized, like Sinn Féin did, for example, from the IRA. I think that's like the next evolution, at least in Turkey.
Well, wouldn't she say that they already they kind of already have a political like party, like the Kurdish political. That's one of the reasons why Turkey was pushing the Mirs out, is because the local party kind of has PKK affiliation. You know, like I see that purple icon for that party, and I'm like, hey, that's the PKK party.
Yeah, it is kind of, but like they basically are like fucking forced out of like the whole system is basically rigged against them. Like so that's one like if they were completely free and fair elections and the Turkish parliament didn't have the arbitrary, like I think it's like 20% of the vote to get in parliament limit, and they won't just constantly arrest fucking their politicians, I doubt the PKK would even be active in Turkey anymore.
Like one could argue that
Well, I mean,
it's not.
if that is the case, then this is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not
Transitioning
a
out
bad
of
thing.
the militancy.
It's not a bad thing, but like everything is in Turkey's hands now. Like the PKK have
Yeah.
declared a ceasefire. They said they're willing to go through the peace process. The ball's completely in Turkey's court right now. But like the thing is with Erdogan, because he's moved over the decades into such a nationalist position and built up this huge nationalist, like ultra right wing base in Turkey, if he's seen as like appeasing the PKK or whatever, it's political suicide. So like he's kind of made it impossible for himself to go through this peace process because he'll look like he's like giving up the fight on
I gotta
terrorism.
interrupt here. So, um, Erdogan may have almost lost the election last time, but I think democracy is dead in Turkey. Like, Erdogan, political suicide. That's what I hear about fucking Putin, you know? Putin can't do this, it's political suicide. Putin isn't fucking going anywhere, neither is Erdogan. The last election was the last chance to get Erdogan out of power. It's completely consolidated for him now. So I don't see him actually being able to commit political suicide. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do about it? Cry?
I guess, but like, I don't know. I feel like if for example, like he went through this whole peace process with the PKK, like, and actually met their demands and made like serious concessions that would be needed, I feel like his right wing base would just completely abandon the AKP party, and a lot of Erdogan's votes would also switch over to CHP as well. And when the next election comes, they would have to be such obvious, like out, like in your face vote rigging for him to still stay in power that it would cause a massive crisis.
Okay, and Jack,
Well, who
I've
else
sent you
is there
plenty of
in
links to look
Turkey
at.
other than Erdogan?
I mean, there's the CHP party, which are like, God, how would I even describe them? They're kind of like social
It's like Hitler and
democrat.
Mussolini.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is with CHP, they're also really bad. Like they fucking hate Syrian refugees.
Oh,
They still have like a lot of anti-Kurdish rhetoric, even though they're not as extreme as AKP or MHP. Like, it's really bad, man. It's really fucking bad in Turkey right now. But like, at least like the head of the CHP doesn't want to be like a fucking like semi-dictator like Erdogan is.
Hitlerite.
Yeah, like I'd say like CHP has bad policy, but they still like believe in like electoral democracy. Whereas
Yeah.
Erdogan is basically like Erdogan is kind of like Orban in a way, where he like pretends to be about democracy when in reality, he's just used his position in power to rig as much as the electoral process and the media environment as much as he possibly can.
So, another thing I was saying is,
Do we want to talk about potential repercussions in the area from this?
well, can you hear me right now? Are you...
Like how is it going to ripple through? Should this go ahead? Should
hang
the
on.
PKK lay down arms?
Jack, can you hear me at all?
I will unmute the tab.
Please do, so you can, because I've been trying to talk.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I've been trying to.
Yeah,
send you
I can
links
hear you when I.
because
okay.
so I can't screen share with this laptop because I can only capture the Discord screen. So I sent you infographics and stuff to pull up for all different stuff, and I'll keep sending them there.
Where?
Another thing, does it echo when I do this? Like
only if we're on stream. Only unmuted the tab. So, but this is the other thing. I don't know if it echoes for you. I don't know if it's echoing because I can hear you on Discord or it's echoing through the Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I said I'll just interrupt there so you know to unmute the restream. So because I don't want it to overlay. But,
so I can hear you now, but I can also hear myself.
Yeah, as long as it's going out fine.
Hmm.
You know, like you just gotta kind of deal with your own echo as long as it's going out fine. But
yeah.
Anyway, what I was saying is, I don't expect Turkey to stop military operations against Kurds in Syria if the PKK disarms. So what I was saying is, if you're in the PKK, why? You know, like why are you not in the SDF? What is the PKK actually doing in Iraq? What do they accomplish? Fucking nothing. Nothing. There is no other than, and that's the thing, is it was obsolete when ISIS rose, and they ended up being essential to saving the Yazidi. So, like, are we just going to keep
Should
them
we
around
stream to
in case
Rumble?
ISIS rises
Sorry to interrupt.
Do you want to stream to Rumble? I wasn't. The
honestly,
reason why I turned it off
yes.
is because I thought James would be the third channel. But
No,
I guess
honestly,
yes. I guess we can share to infinite paired platforms.
That's kind of cool. I'm going to turn the Rumble on.
I just did.
Because I think, we should be streaming this sort of stuff to Rumble, because if we can get chuds watching this content, excellent.
Also,
because if we can force education on them, then we win.
I figured right after this we'll start a Bong Slut movie.
Yeah, I think that was the plan, wasn't it?
I was seeing with you because normally you have to go after something. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just because I do need to go make money. I just don't know.
There is Iran as well.
Timing.
Like obviously, like if you're in the PKK and in Iran, I'm not judging you. But in Iraq, there's just no point to be in the mountains in Iraq. Like when the SDF exists.
Well, they'd say like the whole point is to kick the Turks out of the KRG, right?
But why are the Turks there?
Well, to fight them, but it's like a kind of self-perpetuating thing.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
If the PKK are there, the Turks are going to be there. And if the Turks are there, well, Kurds are going to see that as occupation, so they're going to join the PKK and fight the Turks.
So,
where did you send those links?
Restream chat.
The Restream chat. Like, if you go on the Restream page, there's a little private chat thing at the bottom. But yeah, like, the thing is, like, Turkey knows that when they occupy parts of the KRG, it just increases PKK recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, honestly, it's kind of like, it's almost on purpose at this point that they're doing it so that the PKK can stay more relevant, so they've got an excuse to fucking do everything that they do against Kurds.
Also, I just want to, if Alan was here, he would back me up on this. And this does not apply to the SDF, but the PKK, like, there's way too much apologia for them. Like, I know a few people whose family has been killed for them just because they like basically disagreed with their goals and methods. You know, like they kill political dissidents. If you don't agree with them, they'll fucking kill you. You know, and like they don't. Nobody focuses on this. They only focus on the whole child abduction narrative, which is a false narrative anyway. You know.
Yeah, the whole child abduction shit is just like nonsense. Like 99% of the time, it's like some fucking young Kurdish girl ran away from her family because there was some insane like domestic abuse shit going on, or like
Yeah.
they were running away from like an arranged marriage, and then
Yeah.
like the family like complains to like the Turkish fucking government to get their kid back or whatever.
And we go into this on our third episode 3 of LTech. We actually go into the abduction narrative with why it happens.
Hey, look. Green chair.
Oh, it puts it up in a little tab there, and then maybe I can click
Yeah.
it here. What does
I
this
don't know,
do?
you tell me.
Oh no!
Okay. Okay.
Now it's no. Okay. Because it just says watch.
I don't
stream.
know.
How do I?
The echo is really annoying.
Yeah, because like I can bring it up, but then it echoes us. I don't think it's possible to do screen shares.
1 second. Okay, I can hear you now.
But it echoes for you.
Yep.
So no screen share, okay? It's
Cool.
can't be done through Discord, I guess.
Maybe we'll post a Google Doc with links if people want to look.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We just. Oh, I clicked a button. We'll just by next time, someone will figure out their fucking. Oh, it's over here. I need to move my mouse. Someone will figure out their restream.
Well, I think it might be a browser thing. Because when I tried to go on to my phone, it told me that I needed to go onto Safari, so I told it to go fuck itself.
Yeah, it's just because we have
Fuck
Comrade
Safari.
here that we have to go and have all these technical issues. It's his fault.
Fucking hell, man. Bro, I was fuming, yeah, because I literally fucking went down to the office room in my barracks to get these like plug-in fucking headset for computers, and I plugged it in, and I could hear everything through the headset, but I couldn't talk through the mic for some reason. It's so fucking annoying.
Yeah, those all-in-one headsets kind of shoddy sometimes.
I do. Okay.
Anyway,
there's
regional
there's a great
repercussions.
image here
I think we should
that
get
I
into
do
that.
have to share real
yeah,
quick.
regional
what happened-
repercussions.
Yeah, what
Uh,
happens for the Kurds and Rojava? What happens for Turkey? What happens
One
the-
second, because
the
I'm
four
gonna.
countries?
It's gonna drop because I do have to share this image just real quick. Okay, so like this is just like a great image of the network itself that I just found. It's showing all the strings. Of course, this is a Turkish source, so you know. Anyway, now I'll flip it back, which is how do I do it? This button. Boom. Okay.
Wait,
No.
John,
ahead
can you
now.
send me that picture? Because it looks mad interesting. I want to see how accurate it is.
Sure. I'll send it in the restream chat.
But yeah, Syria, repercussions for Syria. Well, basically, not much, because the head of the SDF, which is Rojava's military, Mazlum Abdi, came out and said, "Yeah, we appreciate Öcalan's message and hope the peace with the PKK in Turkey goes through, but we're not subordinate to the PKK, and this message does not affect us." So, like, and you got to remember, like, Mazlum Abdi, the head of the SDF, was a PKK fighter for a very long time before
Wasn't he
Rojava
really?
was even.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there for a long time before this was even a thing. Like, there's a quote from Öcalan, saying Mazlum Abdi is like a son to me. Like he was very close to Öcalan. But the thing is, like, in reality, like the SDF and Rojava is like completely like autonomous from the PKK. Like there's so much
Yeah.
like if you still want to consider them like under the PKK umbrella, they'd be the most powerful PKK branch by a fucking million miles, bro. Like yeah, like the SDF has 100,000 fighters in it. Like and
Fucking hell, really?
yeah, bro, and you got to remember, like, and most of those guys,
Crazy.
like 60%, are like Arab and Assyrian and Armenian and all these other groups, right? So,
Yeah, because
like,
that was going to be my next question is like like the SDF isn't exclusively Kurdish anymore. It's like including
yeah, yeah,
everybody.
yeah, exactly. So, like, why would the SDF, which represents millions of people and multiple ethnicities, be forced to dissolve itself because the PKK potentially might through cease? Like, it doesn't make any sense for them to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In Turkey, like, God, the outcomes could be so wide ranging. It's kind of crazy. Like for example, the nationalists could lose their fucking mind that the Turkish government is doing a peace process with the PKK. On the flip side, Erdogan could just pump the media, the nationalist media, with the narrative like we've finally won, we've forced them to dissolve, blah blah blah, so they could see it as a victory. Um,
True.
the military and the intelligence fucking agencies in Turkey might even try and like coup Erdogan because they're so
Ah.
far right wing. It's actually insane. Like so, there are so many different possibilities in Turkey that how this could happen. But let's just say, like for example, the peace process goes through. The PKK gets the concession it needs to disarm, and the like um election rigging and like discrimination policies by Turkey ends against the Kurds. The effect would be that basically the pro-Kurdish party in Turkey gets like a sad level voting numbers from Kurds, and basically they're a massive force in the Turkish parliament. That would be like
Okay.
the best example. But like
And that would
I
be world ending for the Turkish nationalists.
yeah, that would be like the
Mm.
end of yeah, that would be that they're done basically.
Okay.
Um, there would be so much, and the thing is, right? I feel like even if all that happened, the consequence of that would be like Grey Wolves and other Turkish nationalist groups would basically just start doing terrorist attacks against the Kurdish party in
Mm.
Turkey because
Okay.
like they already do that on a low level, and they control the
Yes.
fucking government, and it's completely rigged against the Kurdish party anyway. Imagine if they see like the main Turkish nationalist party and Erdogan as backstabbing them and letting the Kurds have real electoral power. Imagine what they'd do in response. In my opinion,
Yeah.
they'd just go on like start doing terrorism against them in a big way. That's what I think would happen anyway.
Yeah. And
Um,
theoretically, let's say that is the way it goes. How do the Kurdish population in Turkey respond now that the PKK is gone and well disarmed?
well, the PKK youth, which has been like organized for decades, would just go out in the streets and fight them like they always are.
Okay.
So
So
it would be
basically,
like
they keep doing the youth training thing, and
yeah, it would just be
yeah,
like the youth movement that goes out, and it would basically be yeah. Imagine like football hooligan rivalries or like Antifa versus fascists on the streets in Europe, how it's like really
yes,
violent and militant. It would be like that, but just armed, basically.
okay,
Um, Iran, though, is where things get really interesting because out of all the
Hang on
states that,
one second. Before you dive into Iran, I wanted to ask about the Yazidi branch because it's part of the PMF, right? So, if the Yazidi branch of the PKK disarms and it's part of the PMF, how does that affect the local politic in Iraq? You know, does it even matter? Like, because the PMF is kind of irrelevant now?
To be honest, I can't see them disarming because, like, after surviving the genocide and stuff, I can't see the Yazidis ever disarming themselves again. Like, I can't imagine them ever letting that happen. And to be honest, it's not like they do external operations anyway, so I doubt the Turks would even be bothered. But yeah, when it
Iran.
comes to Iran though, it gets really interesting because yeah, out of all the states that Kurds live in, Iran is probably the in fact no, it's not probably, is definitely the most oppressive towards them. So if anything, I feel like if the PKK went through the peace process with Turkey, I feel like all their operations and all their fighters would just pivot to Iran because they're already there.
This is a good thing, right? Would they
In my
start
opinion,
trying to
yeah,
pick off the IRGC networks?
yeah. In my opinion, it'll be pretty cool. Um, and also there are multiple Kurdish insurgent groups that operate in Iran. There's the PKK, which is their local branch is called PJAK. Then there's the PDKI. Then there's the like more traditional Marxist group like Kamala, and like a bunch of other small networks. And I feel like if the PKK came in with all their infrastructure and all their fighters, those other groups would also work with them, which is traditionally how it operates in Iran. So like, just get swamped basically with an extremely experienced and competent insurgent movement that doesn't even have to worry about Turkey anymore and can basically just focus on Iran. And that's not even considering the fact that the PKK in Iran heavily coordinates with the Baloch insurgent groups in Iran as well. So it would be like a two-pronged war basically.
Yeah, because
And
it's two different sides of the state.
Well,
Two
they
different
better do
sides
it
of
before
state.
the capital moves.
I've heard, even though it's on two opposite sides of the state, I've heard some rumors that like Balochi guys are getting sent up to fucking Rojava to do some interesting stuff. I don't know if that's just rumors though. I don't know if that's 100% legit. But anyway, what was I saying? But yeah, anyway, and the thing is, right, the Kurdish population in Rojava, which is the Kurdish region of Iran, are extremely fucking radicalized. Like they are like if they got on, bro, they're ready to fight, bro. Like it doesn't take them. They don't need any convincing. Like
The Iranian Kurds.
yeah, like especially what happened after the Gina Amini uprising, bro, where
Yes.
IRGC was just going into Kurdish cities like Mahabad and walking into people's homes and just gunning everyone down. Like they are more than ready to fucking fight, bro. And if they start fighting in a really big way, obviously other Iranians are probably going to join in as well.
Well, John keeps saying all you need to do is airdrop guns to these people and they'll fucking overthrow the government.
Well, yeah, that's the thing though. If the PKK doesn't have to worry about Turkey anymore, they'll just send all their equipment to Iran.
But this is my fucking issue. This is my fucking issue where people talk about fucking Israel and America and like, oh, how much they hate the Axis of Resistance in Iran and all that stuff. Well, we saw Israel is more than capable of taking out fucking Hezbollah and all this shit, you know? So it just pisses me off. These protests that happened, the women's uprising protests that happened, the fact that no CIA guy went in and gave rifles away. It's just like the narrative behind how the CIA operates and how they're doing all these coups and stuff. I fucking wish, bro. Like it would literally, you know how like they blame fucking the CIA for overthrowing Mossadegh back in the day, and they only gave him like $1,000 and like 3 months of ammunition. Like it was a revolution that would have happened anyway with or without Western backing, right? If they gave that same amount this time it would be enough to coup them. Like literally, like just give them 3 months of ammo and $1,000, and the government would probably fall. It's so fucking fragile. I don't understand it. If Iran is such a great threat and we don't want them to get nukes, then why haven't we done this? It's almost
a
like
really
all
good
this
point.
shit is bullshit,
And that's the
it's
thing,
just
right?
a fucking state
Like,
fronting,
if the CIA
putting a
really
big
wanted
bad
to
guy
topple
in.
Iran, all they would have to do is send like a couple guys to Kandil on the border and just like give out some more like sophisticated weapons and do a bit of training and like have that be like a little safe haven, and that's it. Like,
Like the
it's
IRGC is
nothing.
fucking
Like-
decimated right
Like
now too.
they're fucking, this PKK's headquarters is inside the KRG. Like, America has bases a few kilometers away from where they operate, for fuck's sake. It's not exactly hard to do. Like, it's crazy, bro. Like, I remember I was on some huge like OSINT space while the uprising was happening. Because if you remember, like while the uprising was happening, like loads of like Kurdish activists and stuff were getting in these big spaces with like all these like Western analyst types and like big OSINT accounts. And I basically just went on and said, like, yo, like, if you want this to happen, all you have to do is convince the American government to support the Kurds in Iran, and the Ayatollah and his regime is fucking gone.
Or Israel. Like why doesn't Israel do anything? Why doesn't Israel, if Iran is such a threat and Hamas is such a threat, why hasn't Israel backed them?
Well, the thing is, right, Israel's still got bad blood with the PKK because the PKK fought in Lebanon against Israel.
Good.
I think the PKK fighters that died in Lebanon against the IDF were literally the PKK's first casualties in any war, because they were at the PLO camps in Lebanon.
Pretty good track record.
So how much do inter-Kurdish disputes hold them back? Would the Kurds from Iraq or Syria really wholeheartedly support those in Iran if they get? Yeah, inter-Kurdish disputes don't matter when it comes to Iran.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Like, when it comes to like, when you talk about intra-Kurdish disputes, it's usually disputes between like clans or political groups inside their own region. When it comes to things that affect states that are oppressing Kurds outside their own region, like, there's no dispute at that point. It's a united front. That's why, for example, Baful Talabani has his own special forces unit operating alongside the SDF, and why you have fucking Kurds from Rojava going to the KRG in the mountains to fight, and why you have like Iranian Kurds in the YPG fighting. Like, when it comes to like foreign states, bro, like the disputes don't come into effect.
But yeah, this entire thing with Iran, like the fact that they're still in power is really what has blackpilled me to understand, that like they literally are there because the U.S. wants them to be there. They're like, it would cost basically nothing. In fact, we would make tons of money, because Iran has the oil and control over the Strait of Hormuz, right? So there's only benefits to the U.S. doing a coup in Iran, you would think. So why haven't they? And this is kind of what aggravates me.
Why do you think they haven't, right? Do you think it's like drum up support for like you always need an enemy or something, or like, surely it can't just be that.
You would think. I just don't get it. I don't get it, because this is what really like has like blackpilled me to start to understand like how much bullshit the general discussion that your average like layman is going to have about Iran. Like, now, in the past I have made the argument that if you toppled the regime, the IRGC would still exist. After Israel,
Yeah, it's decentralized.
No. The IRGC's fucking cooked because of fucking October 7th. They're done. Like, now more than ever, just fucking giving a few rifles and mortars to a fucking people in the mountains would topple Iran.
But that's the thing. And that's the thing now. Now with FPV drones that you can print in your fucking bedroom, it's even simpler than that. You literally would have to just ship in a bunch of 3D printers and like civilian chipsets to
This is a
people
joke
in
I've had
Iran
for a
that
long
you
time, is
covertly
airdropping
support,
3D
and it's
printers.
over. Like it's fucking done.
You say you could 3D print drones?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much are
FPV
3D
drones.
printers?
Most of the very cheap, very cheap. The frame for FPV drones, it's all 3D printed. All that you need is the chip and the camera and the warhead. That's it. And those are
Nick?
all like the camera's very cheap, the chip is very cheap, and the warhead, bro. There's it's the Middle East, bro. There's RPG warheads everywhere.
We got Ted Cruz in the chat. That's I didn't realize they were 3D printed. That's fucking cool. I might buy a 3D printer now.
Yeah, like the thing's right. It is like comically easy to support like a revolution in Iran right now. Like it is. It's honestly, it's kind of more effort for the CIA or whatever to not do it
Yeah,
at this
and
point.
exactly. And the Gulf states, too. The Gulf states, they also, like, the whole thing with, like, oh, we have to fight the fucking Houthis and do the genocide in Yemen because we're Saudi Arabia and Iran is evil and backing the Houthis. Don't you understand? Well, if that's the case, like, you couldn't, like, you're the number one U.S. arms buyer. You couldn't lose 2% of those arms and fucking take control of Iran. Doesn't make sense,
You know what
does
it is,
it?
yeah? I think they're all just fucking terrified of capitulating, of toppling the regime because they don't know what would come afterwards. Like they're so fucking like traumatized from all the other regimes toppling and what comes afterwards that they'd rather risk it having Iran be consistent and kind of knowing what Iran's about in under the current regime than under an actual like not like democratic government, or even maybe not even democratic, just some fucking like pro-Western oligarchy or some shit. Like they just rather like the enemy they know, like the devil they know, than the devil they don't. Basically, I think that's their thinking on it.
I'm just saying, I don't buy it. I don't know why it hasn't been done, but anytime I hear them talking about Iran and how Iran is a great evil and stuff, all this is like, then all I think is, then do something. You know, they tried to associate Iran with October 7th. Why? You know, like it was basically
You know what I
all
think it might be?
organized
Yeah,
through
it might be
Hamas.
that. Like say they topple Iran or whatever, the Ayatollah goes, some like pro-Western, pro-Gulf states friendly government gets in power. It kind of gets rid of so many excuses for the policy and the actions of all these governments in the Middle East that are anti-Iran. So we're like, they can't excuse a lot of the shit that they do anymore because Iran's not the threat. And I feel like if Iran wasn't this big threat to the Gulf states, it would basically take all their attention, like all the citizens' attention away from Iran, and the only foreign thing that they care about as much would be Palestine at that point.
And obviously they would start looking at
rant
the
about this all the
U.S.
time.
next too. And to also
It's
to,
so
Yeah,
short-sighted.
because-
to do a quick defense
Yeah,
go on.
of the West,
is just
okay?
like
The Ayatollah is
they
going to die
focus on
tomorrow.
all these things, but like realistically, they just focus on Palestine, and it's like, and now Israel is trying to co-opt the Kurdish movement. It's like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
but
they're just,
that's never going to happen.
Also,
Like-
no,
hang on.
fucking God, I hope
real
not.
quick, I got to interrupting again. The Ayatollah is going to die tomorrow. That's another reason, right? So like that's so. Why go through the regime change risk if you know the Ayatollah is dying next week anyway? Like the dude. So
Sure.
like, a great example. Okay, so Zawahiri being assassinated in the Haqqani compound in Afghanistan, right? Remember what happened? What I sent you just days before that happened, Jack? Do you remember this conversation?
Say that again. Sorry.
Zawahiri was assassinated. The emir of Al Qaeda was assassinated
Yes.
in the Haqqani compound. Do you remember what I sent you just before that happened?
Vaguely,
It was
but
a
not
report on
specifically.
him from the UN, right?
Okay.
So a week before that hit happened and he was killed, a report from the UN came out that said, "Oh, we were wrong. The guy is actually in perfect health." Because the rumor was that he had months to live, right?
Okay.
So the moment they found out that he didn't have months to live, a week later he's dead. On the day the report came out, exactly 7 days later he was dead. Which means the report came out, they gave them an operational capacity of a week to get the job done. It was a direct response to this UN report that he was fine, right? So that's what I'm saying is like the Ayatollah has to be fucking dying in a week or two. You know what I'm saying? Like it'll probably be another year, maybe 2 years, but the dude is not going to be around longer. And now that the fucking president just died in that helicopter crash, who do they have? His son? Who's going to actually be take over, you know? And this crisis that's going to happen when the Ayatollah dies is serious because the people are not going to support another guy going in there and being the fucking, I almost said Emir, but the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran. Like it will cause an uprising then, and if they don't fund that uprising and cause something to happen naturally by the people, that's the thing. Is
Yeah.
just like even if a coup happens, if it's by the people, who the fuck cares?
Well, tankies care.
They're irrelevant.
I know.
Honestly, yeah, that might be it. They might be waiting for the Ayatollah to die, and then like the crisis of like who the fuck's the next Ayatollah to come in power. Because I agree, I think there's gonna be like a serious like upheaval in Iran if they try and put some like old ass fucking mullah in power, and like the people see it as like nothing's gonna change. And I feel like as well, like they need some sort of leader that has actual like genuine power in the system, and like no one even comes close to Khomeini right now. So like, who the fuck would that even be? Do you know what I mean? Like, no one in the army has any real power. The only people that have actual power in the regime, other than the Ayatollah, are like the goons in the fucking IRGC, and like they wouldn't be popular. So
And also, Soleimani's dead. So and then another thing, when it comes to like that type of stuff, I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Happens all the time.
yeah, I feel like Soleimani was the only option. Like, who else is there? Like that he even has a name even close to Soleimani? Like, no one.
No, he really was. Eh, maybe.
Fucking hell, imagine they just bring him back.
There's always an option.
That would be hilarious, bro. As much as he was a bastard, that guy was so funny. He was so fucking funny.
I mean, Ahmadinejad did run this last election.
Is that the one that Bruno likes?
Popular though?
Yeah, he was in the last election. He got like no votes. Nobody showed up to vote anyway. So
Yeah, but yeah, to be fair. The vote count in fucking in Iran might as well just be made up on the day. Do you know what I mean? So but yeah, like bringing it back to like consequences of this though, of the ceasefire potential peace agreement with whatever with Turkey and the PKK. To be honest, I don't really see it going anywhere. because fundamentally, I don't think the Turkish military and the intelligence agencies and the nationalists in Erdogan's government want a peace process. Like, it only benefits them to keep fighting the PKK. So why would they stop? Like, they have no incentive to stop it, because if the PKK just turns into a fully legal political movement, that's just less power for them in the parliament. So why would they ever do it? And my opinion is the only reason the head of the MHP party even started this whole thing was because he this kind of starting to realize that the war in the KRG isn't doing anything, and if anything, they're kind of losing that war. Like, they push all these troops in, they get insane casualties, they get over 20 TB2 shot down, and now the PKK is producing fucking FPV drones. Like, it's been a disaster.
Okay, so is there anything we want to get into more about this ceasefire? Because I would like to transition for the last part to talk about the drama that's been happening with Israel and the Druze and all that stuff, and I figure James has plenty to say about that.
Oh yeah, there's also a few other questions. For example, he asked, could they be staying their hand on Iran because of China? Maybe they're worried it would deepen Russian-China relations.
I mean,
What, you mean,
Russia
the
and
West
China.
isn't-
Russia owns China. No, sorry. Either way, China's basically owns Russia at this point, right? So how would that increase their relationship?
Oh no, but I thought you meant the reason the West isn't pro toppling the Iranian regime is that the Russians and the Chinese, they'd get backlash from Russia and China, basically.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, they wouldn't be happy about it, but also, fuck off, you're also doing imperialism. You can't really talk. Like, China's literally in the middle of the South China Sea enacting imperialism, and they want to talk about overthrowing governments? Russia's in Ukraine. Like, I don't understand why the global community even entertains them talking, to be completely honest. You know what I mean? Like, it's comical that they even get to have a say. And especially, like, as John said, if it is done by the Iranian people, who gives a shit who gave them the guns?
True. But James, did you have any questions about the whole PKK thing?
A few. I was just kind of waiting a bit. How do you think the new Syrian government is perceiving the ceasefire between Turkey and PKK?
Wait, how do I think who's perceiving it?
The new Syrian government.
The new Syrian government.
Which government?
The Syrian.
Oh, the new Syrian.
Oh, Shara or Jelani.
Jelani. It's hard to say because, Muslim Abdi, the commander of the SDF, has already said it doesn't affect us. So he probably doesn't see it as a major thing. He probably sees it as a positive, that the Turks might get a bit more off his back and a bit less trying to force him to be confrontational with the SDF. But that's about it, in my opinion, because even if the peace process went completely through and the PKK disarmed in Turkey and the KRG, Turkey will still see the SDF as a threat anyways. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if
They always will.
Turkey, yeah, it's not as if Turkey genuinely only sees the SDF as a target because they're linked with the PKK or whatever. They'd fucking see them as a threat if they were like, if they were anything. Like it doesn't matter. They're Kurds with like weapons and like a government, so they're a threat. So I think that no matter what, Turkey would always be on Jelani's back and trying to get him to confront the SDF.
Because wasn't Jelani trying to disarm the SDF, trying to get them to integrate into the Syrian Defense Force, like the
Yeah, but I think they've kind of dropped
the
that at
federal
this
one?
point.
Okay.
Because
I always said like when I first
saw
saw that, yeah, because like when I first saw that, I was just like, why? Like,
well, in my opinion,
collaborations is the way you should be going.
In my opinion, that wasn't what he wanted to do. It's what the Turks were trying to force him to do. Because, like, Jelani's not an idiot. Jelani knows that, like, Kurds aren't just going to fucking disarm themselves while Turkey occupies Syrian territory. Like, he's not stupid.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like the Turks just told him to do that to, like, feel out what the response would be from the SDF. Yeah, and the response every time it was brought up was was like a full-on no. We're not.
No other words needed. No.
Yeah, like but what's but I feel like we should transition into like Syria general because there's so much shit that's happened like just this week.
Well, I think we've covered most of the PKK
that's what I was saying.
Is there anything we missed?
I wanted to talk about Israel and the Druze and all that stuff that was going on, and I figured James had a lot to say there.
Oh yeah. There's another separate question about Somalia and Al-Shabaab. Any chance you can answer that really quickly?
Yeah.
It looks like Al-Shabaab's taking a large chunk of the Middle Shabelle region. I haven't really seen much in the way of a counteroffensive from the Somali army, and it's not quite faring well with the federal government right now.
Yeah, man. You know what's crazy, bro? The fucking Puntland government is doing a really successful offensive against ISIS, but the actual Somali federal government can't do it. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Puntland's government and its advisors are very good. FGS has
apparently they're getting air support by the UAE.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, Puntland has been getting like covert air support by the UAE, by the way.
Ooh, oh yes.
How do you covert air support?
Well, they're just not. They're just not saying anything about it.
Oh, okay.
But like, thankfully, there's a bunch of like Puntland guys on Twitter that are like openly talking about it.
You think Puntland, like P-U-N-T?
Yeah.
Where is this? I've never heard of this.
It's like a Horn of Africa government within Somalia.
What, near Somaliland?
Yeah,
next to Somaliland.
Interesting. I didn't know there was a separate one there. What's their deal? What do they want?
I don't know enough about Puntland to confidently say, but like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Autonomy also.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, James. But aren't they like? Isn't the main thing with Puntland that they're like one main tribe and they're a separate tribe from like the rest of the Somali federal government held areas?
Essentially.
Bro, it's crazy because two fucking British drill rappers recently are wanted by the federal Somali government because they joined the Puntland forces. They run away from a murder in the UK.
Hilarious, by the way.
Yeah,
Funny.
fucking hell. But yeah. What was like your question with Somalia? Like, what do you think should happen?
Oh, yeah. Mo, to clarify here, Somaliland wants autonomy and basically full independence. Puntland's more comfortable with the federal system as long as Mogadishu doesn't fuck with them.
Yeah, but I feel like
I mean,
I'm
that's pretty
kind of
fair.
surprised though that like JSOC hasn't really done anything about like the Shabab offensive.
And speaking of the devil, they actually launched a few airstrikes earlier today, but it's a bit. It's so far they're a little late to the party.
Yeah, it's not really going to be enough, man. Like wait, are the Turks still in Somalia?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why aren't they doing anything?
Uh,
Good question.
it's like essentially a Green Beret type thing. They're just training. They're not an actual like force that can do anything. I don't know if I was heard for that because I don't want to echo, so
I heard, yeah.
I just interrupt and go to restream. But yeah, they're like Green Berets. They don't do anything. They're not an actual fighting force. They train.
Ah, okay. That would explain why they don't do anything. It's not their job.
Capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Syria? I didn't say Siri. Silly fucker.
Hey, Syria. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I,
the Druze, Israel.
I'm pretty sure Likud getting high off its own supply. Uh, it, the Druze, you should really speak for your own entire groups of people, but Druze are a minority in southern Syria, right? It's a large minority, but it's still predominantly Arab, and Israel's sort of pushing up its buffer zone that's basically a miniature conquest plan. Including into the suburbs of Damascus.
Because I saw a map of Syria that had a big Druze section cut out of it up to basically Rojava and something about Israel. The fuck was that? Was that anything, or was that just a projection?
No, that's just some meme that's going around Twitter.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
it's a meme, but it's a Hezbollah sort of talking point increasingly.
Yeah, okay.
They are halfway serious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming Israel, while the Likud is still in power, are still hunting for Greater Israel.
Well, the thing is, right? The way I see this is they're using like the threat of, oh, we'll come in to protect the Druze as kind of a
Exactly what I
pressure
was going to
point.
say.
Yeah, they're using it as like a pressure point against Jelani's government to act in ways that they want them to act. So, for example, right, and the reason they did this with Druze, by the way, specifically, is because one, they're close to the border, and two, there's a significant amount of Druze in Israel proper. Yeah, basically. Israel's pretending to be like the protector of minorities or whatever. But basically, the whole reason this kind of issue with the Druze started was that the Druze rebel forces, after Assad fell, haven't actually let the Jalani's government forces into their areas to administrate them. They've had their own independent force controlling their areas this entire time. And recently, which I found like super interesting, was that they announced a new coalition of the Druze rebel groups into what they're calling the Suwaida Military Council. Suwaida is like the region that all the Druze, that most of the Druze live in. But the flag they used and the name they used is like identical to how the SDF names their militias after regions. So, for example, the SDF has the Deir ez-Zor Military Council and the Manbij Military Council, and like even the flag was very similar to how the SDF designs their flags for these groups. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a month ago, the SDF and the PYD were posting about how they're reaching out to the Druze to negotiate together with Jelani as like a joint effort and stuff. I highly doubt that's a coincidence.
What does Syria get out of it if they're collaborating?
What the SDF you mean? It's just like a joint. It just increases the pressure and the leverage they have against Jelani's government, right? If there's two big groups, well, two groups in Syria that represent like basically all of the Druze and basically all the Kurds and also a bunch of Arabs and other groups, then it's like more pressure on Jelani's government. But yeah, basically after
to
this,
make
like
a deal, to deal with the
Yeah,
SDF
yeah.
rather than incorporate. Yeah, okay.
yeah, and the thing is as well, a lot of the Druze like political and religious leaders are also pushing this like autonomy idea, like decentralized government, where regions with like big ethnic minorities have like some level of autonomy in how to manage their political affairs, which is basically the same thing that the SDF is pushing for. And basically, like I think it was like a week and a half ago when this Suwaida Military Council thing was announced. A lot of these Suwaida Druze rebel groups started joining it, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously, Jelani doesn't like this because it's like basically like a smaller version of the SDF, but Druze on the southern border, basically.
Yeah.
And they're not very cooperative with the current government. And basically, what happened, like 2 days ago, was that there was some small clashes in like a I don't know what to call it. It's not like a village. It's kind of like a small town or like maybe like a suburb outside of Damascus, where a lot of Druze live. Between like Druze like fighters, like rebel fighters, and Jelani's forces on the ground.
Yeah.
And after that happened, the Suwaida Military Council said they're mobilizing to protect the Druze in this area. So it looked like there was going to be some serious like confrontation. That's when Israel stepped up and said, "Oh, we'll protect the Druze or whatever. Like our Druze brothers will protect them. We'll protect the minorities." Blah 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 blah. But interestingly, like it seems like Israel's strategy kind of worked because not long after that, the Jelani's government and the Druze came to like some sort of ceasefire and deal very quickly after Israel's statement.
Interesting.
Like it kind of seems like Israel almost got what they wanted. It basically showed Jelani that we will use like conflicts you have with ethnic minorities to pressure you into doing what we want, basically.
Sounds very Israeli. How long until they start settling Druze colonies?
You know.
Like, would they? Or is it more just like a Palestinian thing that they do that?
I doubt it because even the Druze wouldn't want Israel to come in and occupy their territory.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of them, like the Druze political leaders, see it as like a convenient way to pressure the Jelani government.
Yeah.
They can basically turn around to Jelani and say, "Listen, if you fuck with us, we'll just let Israel come in. even though they probably wouldn't actually do it, but
Yeah,
they can they can threaten to do it though, and that's a
that's
major
true.
threat, man. Because what the fuck, like,
Yes.
realistically, like HTS can't really like fend off Israel, like,
No. Especially
so
after they took out all the Assad equipment very
yeah,
shortly
man, like,
after it was proposed.
yeah, man, like, so it's a really cynical but very effective strategy that Israel's using, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hmm. Very complicated situation.
Yeah, James, did you want to do your piece on it?
Yeah.
He's dead.
No, you guys covered it just about pretty good.
James has nothing to say today.
Oh, no, you good.
He's got nothing to say today.
We did have a question. Is the Soweto Military Council SDF connected?
We kind of answered that.
Yeah, I think so, bro. Because like, there's no way. Like, they knew what they were doing, naming their new coalition the Soweto Military Council and giving it a flag that looks like it could very easily be a part of the SDF. Like, and we already know that they were coordinating with the SDF and Rojava a month prior to this happening. So, like,
Uh,
in my opinion, there's no way it's a coincidence. Like, there's just no way.
so if that is the case, is there potential collaboration there between them to kind of mutually protect each other? Like, is that a potentiality?
I don't know about that because they're separated. Like, they're not connected. They don't have a land border. But
Yes.
I think politically, when it comes to negotiations and stuff, they'll very much be like a united bloc.
I mean, that's always a good thing, especially for the Kurds and the SDF.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, bro, I wouldn't be surprised if some like Alawite fucking version happens next, like some sort of like Latakia military council or something
Well,
happens.
imagine if let's say Jelani's government fails, but the state itself doesn't fail, and all these, and it kind of just de facto goes to a Kurdish system,
Well,
like a democratic
to
confederalism.
interrupt
That
real
would be
quick.
interesting.
To interrupt real quick, Jelani. So I talk about institutions a lot. Jelani has stressed institutions. So when we look at Idlib, that was his focus, is building institutions in Idlib, while Assad eroded his institutions and slowly transitioned to a state that was only supported by narcotics. You know, there was no institutions left in Syria, and they fell instantly, and basically the government got a hard reset. So if the fucking jihadist government does fail, as long as these institutions are built up and established, it will be fine. Governments fail all the time. It's only when the state is also failed with no institutions. So there's a difference between a failed government and a failed state. Syria had a successful government because Assad held power, but a failed state. Then, when the government failed and the state failed, it's a complete reset.
Yeah, like, for example, it's kind of similar to Libya, right? Like, Libya didn't have institutions that were like outside of Gaddafi's fucking personal rule. So when Gaddafi fell, it was just like fucking chaos, basically.
Yeah, so Jelani is like a true believer, right? So he established these institutions outside of his own power and outside of Al Qaeda's power because he knew he could be assassinated tomorrow. Like, he's a prime target, right? So he truly believes in Syria and wants Syria to succeed. And I think he's more of a Syrian nationalist than a jihadist, and I think that's the difference there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But he's in a really hard position though, because Turkey's constantly on his back trying to pressure him. Then he's got to deal with Israel constantly encroaching whilst realistically not being able to do much about it. You've got fucking. He's got to worry about the fighters in his own ranks doing shit like in their own, like doing their own actions without being ordered to, that can cause ethnic strife. Then you've got like all this pent up fucking anger in the population and like desire for revenge and stuff. Like he's got so much on his plate that like it's honestly impressive that he's kept it together for this long, to be honest.
Okay, anything else we want to get into? Anything else for today?
Oh, I mean, was there anything
Um,
that we didn't cover? Was there anything we didn't touch on? Touched on Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Israel, Syria. Jordan? What's Jordan? What's the King of Jordan doing with this whole situation? Does he give a fuck?
Not really.
No. Hmm.
He doesn't really give a shit. Oh yeah, there was those like little border skirmishes between Lebanon and Syria, but like that didn't amount to anything in the end. Thank God. Yeah, that's about it really. I think we really covered it all. James, is there anything you would want to say?
James is shy. Demure. Nope. I guess not.
He's dead. He's ceased to be. Okay. So, if you are watching on 5th gen, right, there's a straw poll for our secret movie channel, okay? Now, I'll send the link to the secret movie channel where we will continue streaming to watch copyrighted content
Don't say that. That's illegal.
in just a second here. Gotta pull it up.
I have not looked at the polls, so I don't know what movie there are. Well, I think
Nothing's
Yeah, we
illegal
covered
if
it.
you believe hard enough.
that's true. But also, fuck copyright.
All my homies hate copyright.
especially movie companies. Fuck yourself.
So,
Anyway, it's been good, lads. But fucking, I've got to get up for work in the morning, bro.
No,
so
I
anyone,
finally participated in one.
anyone who's still here, if you vote in the poll, we will transition. When we end this stream, we'll immediately transition to the Bong Slut channel and keep streaming from there. So you have to click that link if you want to continue on with us.
Right. Anyway, lads, I'm off.
Well,
Peace.
we'll talk to everybody later. Goodbye.